When I tell my acquaintances that it's possible not to take income tax from the people, tax on our earnings, they just smile at me and say I'm a dreamer. I say, the United States lived until 1912 without Congress having the right to rob people whenever they wanted, and for as much as they wanted. And they tell me that was a different era. Now everything is different. When I say that most government services, if not all, can be replaced by private ones, and moreover that municipal and departmental services can be made paid and taxes shouldn't be taken from us, they tell me that I'm mentally unstable. And when I say that all public schools should be closed and education should be made exclusively private, people stop talking to me, especially after I claim that universal literacy is absolutely meaningless and serves only to maximally brainwash the people. Now, you probably thought that I'm crazy, not quite normal. There are normal crazies, but me, I'm not only crazy, I'm also not normal. But I swear I'm a normal crazy, absolutely normal, and Trump confirmed that today.
Next year, the biggest tax refund season in history is expected, and we will be giving refunds thanks to tariffs. Because we've literally collected trillions of dollars, and we're going to give a good dividend to the people in addition to reducing the debt. You know, I inherited a lot of debt, but that's nothing compared to the numbers we're talking about. So we're going to pay dividends to the people, and additionally, we'll be able to reduce the debt. In the next 2 to 4 years, these numbers will increase, and I believe that at some point in the near future, you won't even have to pay income tax.
The United States president said, "The time will come, and none of you, neither the rich nor the poor, will pay taxes on the money you earn." Well, what I said a minute ago, yes, you earn $10,000 there, and you don't have to give back a single penny. Today, you pay $3,000 to Washington, plus some to the state and elsewhere, but the largest amount, $3,000, goes to Washington, and everything you earn will be yours. Such a strange concept, right? For the first time, this Marxist tax on earnings, a Marxist, I insist, tax on earnings, was introduced in 1861, but for a specific purpose and temporarily. In 1872, it was abolished, although there was a strong effort not to abolish it. And then they tried again somewhere around 1890, but the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional to collect a portion of people's earnings. Then officials and politicians introduced the 16th Amendment behind our backs, and in 1913, Congress gained a new right to rob the population. They rob us however and whenever they want, and it became, well, 100 or 200 times worse than the English monarch, against whom the colonists rebelled, and against his taxes. You remember that, right? So, no taxation without representation. So, well, they were saying that we won't give you your share. Well, your share, so to speak. We won't give you what you want to steal from us. If we don't take part in deciding what to do with this money, that's about it. Here it means they began collecting 100 times more from them. Before World War II, even before World War II, so taxes for the wealthier were raised up to 88% on large amounts, and in 1963, the tax was raised to 92%. This was done by John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who is loved by the Democrats, 92%. Even Lyndon Johnson realized that this was too much and lowered it. No, not down to 5%. No, as you thought, down to 70%. So still, even after lowering it, oh, great Johnson, great Lyndon, you lowered our tax. So most of the money earned by those who work the best. You created a new medicine, made and paid a lot of money, built factories, set up global services, and kept earning and paying. They took money that could have funded production, but people don't keep cash at home. At worst, they deposit it in banks, which then invest in production development. Instead, they gave this money to those who studied poorly, worked poorly, were lazy, or didn't want to go anywhere or do anything at all. Well, because their needs are considered the responsibility of those who work well. So what do they spend the money they steal from us on? Actually, it's not even stealing, it's robbing us, yes. Billions of dollars are spent every year on maintaining empty buildings in government institutions. No one is keeping track of them. There it stands, empty inside, yet costing huge amounts of money. Members of Congress add to any law what they call pork, meaning, well, pork. Provisions that give them, their districts, money for some absolutely unbelievable projects, basically bribes. Yeah, you'll sign this? I'll sign, but give my guy 3 or 4 million? Sure, no problem. It's not my people's money, so I'll give it. So nobody controls this pig money, right? $1 billion a year is spent on fertilizer advertising in underdeveloped countries. No, not on fertilizers as you might think, but on advertising fertilizers. Several billion a year is spent on advertising homosexuality around the world and on research about the sexual lives of crabs and shrimp. I'm not joking. According to estimates, it's this very Rand. Senator Paul was really involved in this, and I was completely stunned by his report. He himself was stunned by his own report. According to estimates from independent agencies, the United States spends over $1 trillion a year on projects that are listed in the expense column as miscellaneous. To be continued. This is Rand. The senator was also a Discovery senator, 60% federal server. They charge us for the kid with this, yes, in 3010. And 50 to 60% of these in Viticigo studio. We should take 15 instead of 30. It will make life a bit easier for us. And the remaining 15% is spent on services, most of which can be replaced by commercial ones. Well, the post office charges us. First of all, how much does a stamp cost today? It's ridiculously expensive. Plus, every year they're short, they get another $10 billion from Congress. They get it every time. Meanwhile, private mail would also cost us less. They've checked several times already, but there's a law that doesn't allow delivering letters to a non-government agency, period. They decided to protect the school's union. So, huge amounts of money with terrible results. Courts must become private. I understand right now that also sounds like some kind of nonsense. I'm saying yes, then we'll be able to choose where to go to court. They will become faster, much more responsible, and will care less about fighting for their reputation, because we on the other side, the lawyers and so on, will decide where to go. We will decide. Is this person honest? Has it ever happened that people wrote on the internet that he cheated or something like that? Or has there never been anything written about him at all? He charges a fair price. Let's go to him. It could be a court made up of just one person, right in the middle of his living room. Or it could be a corporation, 3,500 judges spread all over America or even all over the world. In 2024, Congress spent $6.8 million, or rather billion. But I remembered that it's millions of dollars to support Ukrainian bloggers. Once again, in 2024, Biden spent $6.8 million on support. What do you think? Did these bloggers write what the Democratic Party wanted, or did they honestly cover something there? Okay, $2.1 million for training. Brazilian girls were taught about the dangers of climate change. Can you imagine that? They actually came up with this, teaching Brazilian girls about the dangers of climate change.
Because the money we receive is so huge that you won't have to pay income tax. Will you get rid of it or just keep it for fun or make it very low, much lower than it is now? But you won't be paying income tax?
As many of you know, Trump has been promoting this idea for some time now, which basically means he has instructed his people to work out the details of the proposal. But Trump definitely wants to be a president who will go down in history as the one who put an end to the federal income tax once and for all, which in my opinion would forever secure his status as the greatest president in American history without exception. In fact, he likes to say that he wants the Internal Revenue Service to be replaced by an external tax service, where tariffs and taxes from other countries would become the main source of federal revenue.
Where would the money come from? For the remaining needs, like the Army and police, that's customs duties, needs, that's what they're for. As of today, what I just mentioned, like the Army, police, and all the other security forces, make up about 15 to 18% of the budget. Well, as of today, that's $1 trillion out of the $6 to $7 trillion that we spend on everything overall. Yes, we'll easily collect $1 trillion at customs. We can even collect 2 because we'll need another $1 trillion. I'll tell you in a minute what else it's for. This is
incredible and unbelievable. This is an insanely and overwhelmingly popular proposal. Again, there are few issues on which more Americans would agree than on getting rid of, not reducing, not cutting back, but actually getting rid of the Internal Revenue Service from the world. But if you put all that aside, there's one inconvenient truth here that the mainstream media are desperately trying to hide from you. They're trying to hide the true current state of the Internal Revenue Service. And what they're not telling you is that the Internal Revenue Service is literally falling apart right now. The Internal Revenue Service is falling apart and has been collapsing from the inside for a long time. According to internal data, the number of Internal Revenue Service agents has decreased by 34% in recent years. They're losing staff. We're seeing such a serious reduction in personnel that the agency now audits only 0.38% of all tax returns. Yes, you heard that right. And for those who think the Internal Revenue Service only goes after the rich, think again. The audit rate for millionaires has dropped by more than 70%. To put it mildly, the enforcement mechanism is broken. It simply can't keep up with the complexity of the modern economy or the massive volume of the tax code. But here is the real crisis that pushed Trump to decide to change course right now at this very moment. It's not just that the tax service is weak, but also that the government is bankrupt. You've heard Trump himself talk about the mess he inherited from the commander-in-chief's pen. We've entered a real vicious cycle of spending. So, just in the first 7 months of the 2024 fiscal year, the United States government spent $514 billion on net interest payments just for the government. Think about that. We now spend more on servicing our debt than on national defense. We
spend another $1 trillion paying interest on our debts, which is more than we spend on national defense. This is the result of the destructive policies of both Democrats and Republicans.
When you switch to a tariff system, you limit the government's ability to spend endlessly. You measure the beast by hunger. You force government institutions to constantly fight against waste, fraud, and abuse. Again, they will no longer be able to politicize the tax code. They will no longer be able to promise to tax the top 1%. Or if you are Zoran Mamdani, they will no longer be able to promise to tax the whiter neighborhoods. All of that ends with Trump's tariff plan. Now, the government has to live within a limited revenue system that can't be politicized using resentment and envy.
That is, Marx's idea about bleeding the bourgeoisie dry will fail on this. Continued. Bleeding the bourgeoisie dry, bleeding the bourgeoisie dry, bleeding. At their congresses, they won't be able to take our money and won't be able to borrow at interest until repayment. Because who would lend to them if there's nothing to pay back with? And will they have a budget? Today they take as much as they want. We have a ceiling, and we've decided that now we can borrow up to $40 trillion. But why did you decide that? Who gave you the right? We agreed on this from the start. We have the 16th Amendment to the Constitution, which you adopted without any of your consent. Cool, absolutely. So, gentlemen, here's another answer to how Trump will improve our lives. That's it. God bless him to stay. To remain in power until his term ends. By power, I mean he won't leave office. I mean, if, God forbid, in the re-election, in the elections next year, in 2026, the lower house of Congress becomes Democratic, then basically Trump, as a brilliant president, is finished. They won't let him function normally. They have many tools for that. So with all your might, gentlemen, with all your might, if you want the reforms to continue, if you want the country to get out of this nightmare it has been in for so many years, we knew, but we couldn't even imagine something like this. So filthy, such a cesspool and nightmare. Here, if you want, please, right now, find the local branch of the Republican Party, whatever it's called. Not a branch, but something else. Maybe a department, right? Find out where it is located. Find out when they are open. Go there and say, guys, as the elections get closer, I want to help you. They'll ask, who are you? What are you? Maybe they'll ask you to do something together right away, or you'll just go to a cafe, sit together, and someone will start talking about some political topic. But you'll get a sense that you have drinking buddies, that you have comrades in arms. Well, that's it, so let's do it. Let's make it so that Trump has the opportunity to finish his term with distinction and hand over the White House, the Oval Office, to the next person who will continue his work for our benefit. Let's not forget to subscribe, ring the bells, and tell our friends how interesting things can get here. Come here to listen to the next video and watch it. Goodbye, subtitles.